This is the fourth interview that we've done over the last sort of couple of weeks. And I have the pleasure of welcoming Ariel Palitz, who is the lead voice for the nighttime economy in New York City. She has been an amazing advocate for nighttime economy, and it's been an absolute pleasure working with her over the last sort of year in particular. And she's doing some amazing work over there, and I won't have it that she's doing anything less. She's been absolutely out of this world, as have many of our guests that we've had on here. First and foremost, I obviously want to thank you for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
and want to, if possible, give some of the people that are going to listen, some of our members, an opportunity to just hear a little bit about you and your background and where you've come from, and how you got to the position that you're in at the moment.
Sure, I really appreciate the opportunity to do that. As a baseline, my name is Ariel Palitz, and I am the Senior Executive Director for the Office of Nightlife at the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment in New York City. It's a mouthful. It's hard to say. That's why usually it's just #Nightlife Mayor of New York, I think. But just for context, so people understand, this is, I'm really representing the first office of its kind in New York. And I got appointed in March. It'll be 3 years already, which is kind of hard to believe. Before that, and the reason why I think I got appointed into the position was because I'm a lifelong New Yorker and nightlifer. I owned my own nightclub in the East Village for 10 years called Sutra Lounge. I served on my local community board on the liquor licensing committee simultaneously for about 7 years during that time. After I sold my bar after 10 years, I had a consulting company and a commercial real estate license to help other bars, clubs, and restaurants navigate the ins and outs of owning and operating and selling their venues. And then ultimately, this position, came about, and the job description sort of read like my biography, and I got the job.
Amazing. No, and the work that you've been doing has been absolutely exceptional. And like you say, it made me laugh earlier. I was speaking to the guys in Australia, and it's almost like the nighttime economy has born some celebrity leads, almost people who have become, come to the surface and been very vocal and very strong, and ridden such a difficult times. It's actually brought some really strong leaders forward, and I absolutely, feel that you're one of those people that have done an exceptional job. So thank you for sort of championing, particularly in New York City, which is a huge responsibility. So just talking through where we are, and I know we've had lots of conversations, but focusing on the pandemic, and part of this call in this interview is about trying to understand what's happening in different countries, in different regions. How do you think the industry has coped with the pandemic? Not so much governments, but the industry as a whole. How do you think they've managed themselves through this pandemic period?
I mean, like the rock stars they are. I think that the people in the hospitality industry, whether it be bars, clubs, restaurants, live music venues, they've handled this with creativity, with dedication, fearlessly, and have been really like soldiers, organizing, mobilizing, executing what has been asked of them meticulously, and are clearly in survival mode, also frustrated, scared, genuinely at times even despondent, in despair. You know, it's a combination of everything they've ever worked for, that they live for, is in jeopardy. But I also think that they're determined to navigate and survive it.
Yeah. And I mean, there are some amazing stories. And one of the things I do feel that has come off the back of this is this sense of community, the cross-sector approach. I mean, you know, definitely in the UK, we found there are a lot of businesses that have reached out, become food banks, and actually fulfilled more of a role in community than probably people expected. Which has been amazing to see. I mean, interestingly enough, a good friend of mine that runs Brighton Music Conference turned when I phoned him one day, sort of early on in the pandemic, he couldn't speak because he was delivering food parcels to elderly and vulnerable. And when you hear that sort of work, you're quite humbled by, you know, people who sort of, you know, particularly of that stature, who decide that, you know, it's more important to service community than it is to focus on some of the challenges they have. Are you finding that in New York as well? Is that the sort of ethos around many of the nighttime economy businesses, hospitality sector?
I mean, absolutely that's happening here, but I don't think I'm surprised. And also, it's something that the hospitality industry has always done,
Mm.
even before this pandemic. I find historically that people in hospitality and service are often the first responders when there is a crisis anywhere in the world, whether it's an earthquake or floods or famine. It's always the clubs and the restaurants that show up to do a fundraiser or to gather food and supplies. And I've, you know, through this position, I've always tried to highlight the giving power of nightlife. And and of course, it makes perfect sense. These are people who are in the service industry, and so they serve when needed. And in addition to stepping up to help the hospital workers and the homeless, and now with hunger of everyday citizens who have never found themselves in this position, we see these businesses stepping up. And the more support we give them, the more support they will continue to give to their communities. And it's absolutely in line with everything this industry is about.
Amazing. So just drawing back, I mean, as I said in the earlier sort of discussion or narrative around why we're doing this, it's really for some people to get an understanding of some of the journey that's happened in different countries. Um, is it possible for you to give us a bit of a view on how the restrictions have been administered in terms of New York, and also I know we alluded to provision and support, but just to understand what level of support those businesses are getting as well?
Well, you know, like I had said earlier, this office was created a little over 2.5 years ago to help support the industry, to get it uh, the attention, respect, and support that it needs. And in the time of COVID, our office, all offices here and around the world have pivoted into crisis management mode, which was not, I think, what any of us anticipated on this level. The industry was in crisis, but not at this level. And so all of the efforts that we do in this office has been solely for the purpose of delivering um, information and resources to the industry, but also to amplify what their needs are into the seat of government where decisions are being made on a daily basis. So making sure that they're being represented in a realistic way so that the resources and the ideas and the creative solutions that are being mulled over and executed every day are as close to helpful and truthful to what they truly need. Um, in New York, we have not um, had the benefit of having surplus funds to be able to distribute um, widely to the industry. In the earlier days, before the federal stimulus came, there was a gap where there was zero money at all, and the city was able to generate a stopgap measure to help distribute funds in the earliest of days. The federal stimulus came in the earlier March or the earlier months,
Mhm.
but we haven't had any federal stimulus package since then. There's been the PPP, which is the Payment Protection Program. There's been EIDL loans for emergency. But as far as the city itself being able to distribute funds, this city is also in a financial crisis, just as much as any business. And it is frustrating and stressful for us within the administration, and even more so for those who are being forced by no fault of their own to, for the most part, cease business operations. And so what I know is that the people in the hospitality and entertainment industry don't want to contribute to the extension of this virus. They don't want that on their hands, but if they're going to be asked to close, they have also asked for financial support, which the city itself and the state have not been able to do. We are hoping and looking quite optimistically in the coming days for a second stimulus package. But in lieu of funds, direct funds, which is ultimately what they need in order to be able to hibernate through this, right? To just close and ride it out. The best that our office has been able to do is to represent them when decisions are being made on different other types of lifelines, like outdoor seating and outdoor dining, like the allowance of outdoor heaters, adjacent seating.
Yeah.
So, and then delivering all of the rules and regulations to them and representing them as best we can.
Brilliant. So just to clarify, what are the restrictions currently in New York City in terms of operation, set aside from the provision and support?
Mm-hmm. So for the first few months, obviously there was the total shutdown. Ultimately, indoor dining was allowed to be restored at 25%, as well as the allowance of roadway seating, which was brand new for New York City. As you may have seen pictures all over of literally full dining restaurants in the road and sidewalks. So the alleviation of all of those bureaucratic permitting and so forth has been restructured to be self-certified. The allowance of delivery of alcohol, takeout and delivery of alcohol was a new lifeline that was added. But in recent days, with the recent surge, just this week was the ban of indoor dining completely again. And then the very next day, we wound up with our first huge nor'easter snowstorm. So as I'm looking out the window, I'm looking out at a foot of snow, which then shut down outdoor dining the very next day. And so, but now it's returned to outdoor dining. We still have no indoor dining as it stands, and there has been talk both by the mayor and the governor that we may be facing a full city shutdown again after Christmas or New Year's.
Wow. Wow, it's sobering, I think is the way to put it, which is not really the tone or phrase you want to use for a bar at best.
Never that.
I just wanted to talk about some. I mean, we've seen an immense amount of resilience and some amazing sort of innovations. Has there been anything that's inspired you? Things that you've seen that you've thought that's very clever, and just things that even it always makes me laugh. The smallest things sometimes operators do make the most significant difference. And I'm just wondering if you've seen anything technology-wise or things that operators have used which have just made the difference between bad experience and good in this horrible situation.
I mean, absolutely. I think everyone, even in this bizarre situation with very strict rules and regulations, are looking for ways to express their individuality and that sets them apart. Um, I have seen in the warmer days for the takeout and delivery of alcohol and food, incredible drag queen performances where you get a delivery and you get a full show where they come on roller skates, and they bring their own disco ball and boombox and disco lights, and you get a full show as you deliver your meal, which has been incredible. There has been, and obviously socially distanced.
Yeah.
um, I think the way that people now, especially in the holidays, are creating these wonderful feasts that you can have delivered, interesting ways of doing pairings where you and doing events, so everybody orders the same bottles of wine and the same food and have like a chef's table and wine pairing experience. From a technological standpoint, of course, we know very quickly, almost overnight, the DJs and venues that pivoted into online DJ sets. What we're seeing now is a lot of the empty venues being used as locations to do live streaming and recorded events or performances, because the regulations around filming and television and recording is different than dining. So you're able to use these spaces under the filming regulations. And I think, obviously with what Lutz is doing in Berlin with WeStream, I mean, it's just United WeStream is just incredible. And also, I think from another standpoint, just the way that the entire industry has finally come together and organized in a way that everyone has talked about for centuries. Wouldn't it be great if the bartenders or the DJs or the chefs all coordinated and got together? We see coalitions, alliances, uniteds, all coming together and putting friendly competition aside. And I really think like NEVA, for example, the National Independent Venue Association organized over 2,000 venues nationally. And there's also the local ones like NIVA, the New York Independent Venue Association, which has literally come together and forced legislation within Congress to hashtag save our stages. It is actually within our bill, on the table. And that was, because of the industry. So they've organized, they're creative, they're politicized, they're active. They're not taking this laying down.
No. And I think that's, and that's, I've seen the work. It's been amazing. And hats off to them. And there's been some amazing work across the world. Just dipping in over the last sort of couple of weeks has been as intriguing as much. And you're right. I mean, the likes of Lutz and United We Stream and some of the innovations there have been amazing. So just talking about a little bit about the future. How do you see things developing in 2021? Obviously, there are lots of ifs, buts, and maybes, and unknowns, I suppose. But as you can appreciate, there's a lot of talk about vaccinations. There's a lot of talk about rapid testing. what would you like to see moving forward in terms of operations and the ability to try and get back some sort of engagement socially, albeit in a safe COVID environment?
Well, I think inevitably we're all moving in that direction, and quite quickly. I mean, the medical innovations that have been happening have been encouraging in America and globally. I think even just this week, there was approval for home testing, rapid home testing, like a birth control test,
Yeah.
you know. So I do think that obviously having a sense of safety and trust
Yeah.
for the general public is essential. I think using rapid testing on sites. The city itself is looking to venues and other venues as right now public on-site testing facilities and testing how that works.
Yeah.
Um, and with the vaccines, inevitably, you know, the good thing about a global pandemic, if you could say there is such a thing, is that we're all in this together. It's
Yeah.
not like, oh, just the UK or just New York. Like, we're all suffering. We're all suffering equally, and we're all suffering in the same ways. And so we have the minds of the world, the efforts of the world to find universal solutions to get us all out of this.
Mm.
And so I think that's why the speed of the solutions are coming this, you know, this quickly. And I think inevitably we will find a way. We must find a way. We have to get back to life, maybe not as normal, hopefully better than it was before. But when I think about what the future of hospitality in our cities are, I mean, I see a renaissance happening because, you know, when there's collective pain and collective suppression of expression, all it is getting bottled up and being stored for the ultimate celebration of our return.
Listen, and I'm with you there. I mean, we've got so much entrepreneurial spirit, creativity, resilience that, in some respects, that's kind of worked against us in some areas. I think the government think we're probably going to bounce back better than most, but it's like you say, it's a challenging environment. So just talking about what we spoke about earlier, the fact that there are obviously restrictions. Is there anything that you think that could have been done sooner or better in terms of the way that the businesses were supported? To give you an example, I mean, communication in the UK in terms of restrictions and the fact that businesses have been turned on and off, and there's been an immense amount of food waste and things like that has been a real challenge. Is there anything in particular? Obviously, it's a difficult situation, so criticism at any level, given this environment, is not easy because everyone it's such a huge challenge and we don't know what the outcomes are. But is there anything that you can take away saying, look, we could have done this a little bit better, or that would have been nicer to know, that would have given or made a big difference in terms of the sector?
I mean, it's definitely a complicated question because, you know, none of us have ever been through this before. And to mobilize and to stand up programs and systems to keep a city and an industry from falling off a cliff in a moment's time is a Herculean effort.
Yeah.
Could there have been things that have been done better? Of course. But those things can only be seen in retrospect for the most part. I think for the most part, I'm proud and happy of the fact that the Office of Nightlife was even here, that we had that we were in a position to respond, and the city has done its best to respond, and the state. I don't know about the federal level. It's been a bit of a mess there too. But I mean, obviously, I think financially it would have been great to be able to find a way to prioritize or find on some federal level, some level to financially help people through this so that they could just shut their business, pay their rent, close their doors and ride it out, right? Without the constant demand on them
Yeah.
to pivot and change and open and close and build and spend and close and open and build and spend and close, and having to hire their staff and fire their staff. As a former venue owner, the emotional toll on someone who operates and who is responsible for all of those lives and the food on their tables. It's almost Christmas, and we just shut down indoor dining,
Yeah.
and so people are being laid off. Like, I would have hoped to have been able to protect them more emotionally through more financial resources,
Yeah.
and to have less yo-yoing of, saying, do all of this, and then they do all of this, and then because the numbers are surging, the city, and this actually, it's not even the city, it's the state. The city doesn't even have the control and power to open or close businesses. It's the governor.
Yeah.
So asking so much of them, and then still not being able to really give the support and the reward for that effort
Yeah.
is painful.
And we have had some immense throwback in terms of people's mental health and well-being during this. And we've seen, sadly, very, very sadly, alongside the public health challenges that have been there, we have seen quite a considerable amount of people taking their own lives because of the pandemic and the mental health elements that drive people to an area which, I can never sort of fathom or feel or understand how deep that must be in terms of that position to make that decision. So it's very, very sad, and I'm completely with you there. That emotional support and that ability to be there for people is I'm hearing you completely. So just a couple of last questions just to finish off. How do you think we are, or people are going to be able to future-proof the industry? Do you think there are any mechanisms that will be put in place to, excuse me, future-proof the industry moving forward if there is another crisis?
Yeah, I mean, if we're not learning lessons now, then all of this will be in terrible vein. I think there's a lot of room for lessons learned on how to prepare for the return. And actually, it's an opportunity of sorts to be able to try to course correct
Yeah.
what the issues that were going in the wrong direction before this pandemic. The reason why there's a global movement for nighttime economy management, the reason why there's over 50 nightlife mayors around the world, is because it was already in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it's important that we don't go back as much as we can, that this car that has stopped, that we can change the tires on the car that is not moving at this moment, and to really take this opportunity to see how can we address some of the inequity, accessibility, sustainability, affordability, fairness, safety issues that we were all talking about 10 months ago. Listen, a lot of the medical or virus pandemic issues are going to be determined by our local health departments on rules and regulations of what to do at the door and what to do before. And those are going to be implemented. The hospitality industry, again, are good soldiers. They know how to keep their spaces safe and regulated in that respect. But to go back to, you know, mental health, drug use, racial inequity, LGBTQ issues around safe havens in in venues, homelessness of young club kids who are sleeping, you know, staying at the club till 4 and have nowhere to go after that. There's so much work that we can do now that we're more united, now that we're more organized to address these issues. I've personally have always seen, and I know I'm preaching to the choir of probably everyone listening on this call, that nightlife and hospitality is an opportunity to look out for each other, not a liability, you know, or a nuisance where bad things happen. And so that is how we have to continue. I hope that this this collective painful experience has brought us more compassion for each other, more gentleness with each other, more cooperation with each other, and we can be a little bit more sensitive to the needs of human beings and of the industry. Hopefully the cities will respect this industry even more now that we know what it looks like when it's gone. So, you know, hopefully we'll be coming at this with a lot of lessons learned.
Ariel, that's amazing. And just one last question, and this is only a short one, and in some respects, the last question that you've answered sort of culminated in it, some of the response. But have you got a message for the nighttime economy in the UK from New York in terms of support and solidarity that I could ask you potentially to give? Because there are many people that are very interested to hear your perspective, given the amount of work that you have put into something that is not only a passion, but is fundamental to society.
Well, let's see. I mean, I guess it's a little cliche, but we really are all in this together, right? This is a global pandemic and a global opportunity to come to get together even more than we were. Recognize that you can hear New York in the background now, if you can hear some of my sirens.
That sounds like someone's been caught dining outside.
Yeah, someone's in trouble. You know, this is hard. This is really hard, and a lot of it isn't fair. Most of it isn't fair. There are not easy solutions. We are all just trying to figure this out as we go along. There are mistakes, but there are wins and solutions being found. We're still here, right? No matter how much this thing has tried to bring us completely down, we're still here and we're going to get through it. And we have to take advantage of the opportunities and support that we have and to stay united locally and globally, and to learn lessons from each other. I think conversations like this, having global conversations, is essential. I'm on regular calls around the world and around the country because we're all suffering this together. We can learn from each other. You're doing certain things better than we are. We're doing some things differently than you are. And we can learn from each other, but we also have to forgive some of the mistakes that are happening along the way and learn from those mistakes and just keep going, you know, and not give up and know that we're going to get through it. I mean, we just are. We're going to get through it, and we're going to be better for it if we choose to be.
Amazing. Ariel, as always, you've been an absolute superstar, and I hugely respect everything you're doing in your work. keep it up, keep pushing hard, and as I say, we'll continue to talk and compare notes. But I just want to say a huge thank you for spending the time and giving us your perspective on what's happening in New York, and how you feel things are going to happen as things roll in. But that supporting message was amazing. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, and I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and all of your listeners. And we shall see each other soon and on the other side.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Happy holidays to a happier and better New Year.
We forget actually that it is the festive period, funny enough. But
there's always something to be grateful for.
Definitely.